Please welcome to the stage Thomas Davis and Chad Hennings.
Well, good morning, men of Dallas. You guys ready to talk a little football? As am I. Thomas, this is, as you know, Texas, it's all football. Football is king here, right? So
Trust me, I know.
Yeah. Let's hop right into it. We had a chance to chat a little bit last night about the combine, which is going on now, and some of these young kids that are coming in, putting up some of these phenomenal numbers. Who's impressed you so far?
So I think the one person that really stands out that I've been most impressed with, without a doubt, has been Shaquem Griffin. You know, what he's been able to do. You know, he has a disability now. He lost his hand when he was 4 years old and wasn't even getting invited to the combine just a month ago. And now he got the invite. He went out, you know, he added his attachment to his hand. He bench pressed 225 pounds, I think 20 or so times, and the kid went out and ran a 4.3840.
At what weight?
At 227 pounds, so that's definitely impressive.
Mass times velocity. A lot of pop. Well, you're entering your 13th season. You said this is going to be your last one, 13, 14 season.
14 season.
Okay. It's going to be your final one. How'd you come to that decision?
So my kids have definitely been the biggest reason. You know, my boys are growing up, my girls are growing up, so it's time for me as a dad to really dedicate a lot more time to their endeavors.
That's cool. We have couple former Cowboys here. Bob Brunig, where are you at? You could probably that same thing. The game has changed a lot, hasn't it? From back in the day too, right? Where if you got injured, they just basically said rub a little dirt on it, get back in there, right? Put the smelling salts, yeah, yeah. And Tyler Klutz is here too, another former Cowboy. Pay mention to him. But you know, as a former player too, most guys don't get the choice as to when they're going to retire. I mean, that's mostly due to injury and just wear and tear on the body. Now, that was almost your story. For those of you who don't know, Thomas has overcome a lot of adversity in his life, but specifically a lot of adversity in the football field. He has torn the same ACL 3 times. He's the only guy in the NFL to come back after 3 times of tearing your ACL. Tell us a little bit about that. What motivated you to think, man, keep coming back?
So that was probably the toughest point that I've ever had to face in my life, you know, dealing with that 3 consecutive years. And, you know, I can definitely say without a doubt that I was fortunate to be drafted to the Carolina Panthers and play for an owner by the name of Mr. Jerry Richardson. And Mr. Richardson has always been a Thomas Davis fan based on, you know, the good works and the things that I've been able to do in the community in Charlotte since I've been there. And I don't take that for granted. But when you think about playing this game, you know, we as players, we know that and we talk about the injury rate for guys that play the game longer than 3 or 4 years is 100%. Basically, I know Mr. Hunt probably don't want to hear this, but that's kind of how we look at it. That's kind of how we look at it as players. And you know, something is bound to happen when you go out and you play this game the way that we play it. But for me to deal with that, you know, and when it initially happened, I had never been hurt before. So I'm thinking, okay, why is this happening to me? I was having one of the best years of my career. And, you know, I started to question a lot, like, God, why is this happening to me? You know, then I rehabbed that, come back. They time us in the 40. I run a 4.4 again. I think I'm healthy. And I go out 2 days after running that 40 time and tear my ACL again. So now I'm really starting to question. And then, you know, it was one day I really sat down and I just prayed, and I still questioning, asking God, why is it happening to me? And, you know, it just hit me like, who else would you rather this happen to on your team? When you think about it and you put it in perspective and you start to think about that from a selfish standpoint, it's like I wouldn't rather this happen to anybody else. God placed this on me because he knew that I could handle it. So go back, you know, using that motivation to come back from that, go out 2 games into the next season in 2011, tear my ACL again in the second game versus Green Bay. So instantly as a player, in my mind, I'm thinking that my career is over, because we understand that the NFL is a business. And you don't see guys, or you've never seen a guy get an opportunity after going through what I had gone through, 3 consecutive years, tearing my ACL. And it wasn't until I sat down with my wife and our team chaplain at the time, and they asked me the question, do you feel in your heart that you're done with the game, that you no longer want to play football? And as a football player, you know, we love to compete, we want to play the game, and I was still fairly young at the time, and the answer to that question was no. I don't feel like I'm done. I still want to play. I still felt good when I was out there. So my wife told me, you know, sometimes our wives have to be the voice of reasoning for us.
And everybody said, amen, right?
She told me, she basically put it out, like, you have to go through the surgery anyway to come back and live a healthy life. So why not give it another shot if you still feel like you want to play? So I had a meeting with Mr. Richardson and our GM at the time, Marty Herney, and Coach Rivera was a new coach. And, you know, just to see, kind of get a gauge if there was an opportunity for me to continue to play. And they told me that they would love to have me back if I was willing to put myself through it. And, you know, at that point, we never really knew what was going to happen. But I knew that based on them believing in me and telling me that they were going to give me an opportunity to come back, and Mr. Richardson being the person that was most excited about that, I wasn't going to let him down. So every day I went into the rehab process, I never had a negative thought in my head that it was not going to happen. Everything that I had in my head, I'm going to be the first to do it. I'm going to prove everybody that said I couldn't or shouldn't do it wrong. And, you know, it was amazing. God was truly showing favor in my life.
You know, we talked a little bit last night, too, about God's providence in that. Typically, when you get that type of injury, you have meniscus damage or there's some damage to the bone, but you didn't have any.
Didn't have any other damage other than ACL tears. So it was straight ACL tears, and that's really the reason why I've been able to continue to play and go from having 3 consecutive years where, you know, I had to miss time to 3 consecutive Pro Bowls, because I didn't have any other damage other than just straight ACL.
God likes that number 3, doesn't he? Amen.
Still chasing that.
You can use that one later. Okay.
Right, I like it.
We could trademark that somehow, right?
Still chasing that ring.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a firm believer in universal truths, and I think that there's a lot of life lessons that we learn from different phases of our life. For example, I learned a lot of life's lessons from flying jets, whether training or combat, to playing in the NFL, and now to the business arena. What lessons has football taught you that you think you're going to be able to kind of translate to other areas of your life and the business into this next phase?
So football has definitely taught me tons of lessons. You know, it really started in high school. You know, it starts with the discipline aspect to be able to do the things that we do on a consistent basis. And, you know, when you think about preparing yourself and being ready and going out and dealing with different personalities, I think that's something that you can't take for granted as a football player, because we have to deal with so many different people. When you think about everybody coming together for that one common goal. So it teaches you discipline, it teaches you teamwork, dedication to a craft, and commitment. So without a doubt, those are some of the things that I definitely would look back on and say that football has taught me.
Man, great. Now, growing up in Shellman, you know, that kind of shaped who you were on and off the field. And how does that, you know, translated you into wanting to start your foundation, Defending Dreams?
So growing up in Shellman, Georgia, you know, I had the pleasure of really watching a lot of people around me go on and do different things. And at a very young age, I told myself that I wanted more from my life than I had witnessed from the people around me. You know, you had so many guys that were super talented. They had all kinds of athletic ability, but while growing up, they stayed at home. You know, they didn't get the grades that they needed to make sure that they were able to go to college, or if some of them did make it to college, they came back home. You know, they flunked out of school. And, for me, that was never an option. I knew that my mom couldn't afford to send me to college, so I knew that I had to do everything that I could. So my school days went like this: football season, basketball season, track, a little baseball, but mostly track. So it was me totally dedicating myself to finding a way out, finding an opportunity or chance that was going to be there. And regardless of whatever the situation that I had grown up in, I knew that if I stayed obedient and listened to what God was calling me to do, that it was going to work out. And as a young kid, to be able to say and look back on it and think about all of the different obstacles that were ahead of me, that were in my way. I played 8 different positions in football in high school, trying to really show somebody that I was capable of playing on the Division I level. And there was only one school that offered me a scholarship to play Division I football, and that was the University of Georgia. And I was the last kid given a scholarship in that group, and I actually got my scholarship from my college coach coming to see another kid. And he stopped in and watched me practice basketball. And we didn't know who he was sitting in there. And after basketball practice, he said, "I don't know where I would play you at, but I want to offer you a scholarship to come play for me at Georgia." He said, "Because your athleticism and your athletic ability," he's like, "you can't coach that, or you can't find that." And here I am, played a whole football season and didn't really have that scholarship offer. And then I got offered from him watching me practice basketball. So I go from being in a city that has 1,000 people to a school that has over 30,000 people. So I think that was a little culture shock for me. But once I got there, still it's engraved in my mind, like, I'm never going back to Shelburne, Georgia to live. So in order for me not to have to do that, I have to take advantage of this opportunity. So go to Georgia, tell all the guys that are around me, you will not outwork me. That was my mindset. That was my motto when I was in school. And we had a motto also of finish the drill when we was at Georgia. So I went from being the last guy given that scholarship, long story short, I was the first guy drafted out of that group. And that was through hard work and dedication.
That's awesome. And for a lot of you young parents out there, or young fathers out there, I want to emphasize a point that he made. Well-diverse athlete. Don't pigeonhole your kids into playing one particular sport. Let them be an athlete. Let them play soccer, basketball, wrestling, football, track, baseball, whatever it might be. That's where the kid learns how to be an athlete, right?
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why me and my wife are running around like chickens with our head cut off right now.
So you're saying it has its drawbacks too, right?
It definitely has its drawbacks, but at the same time, the kids, they really enjoy being able to do that. So, I mean, I know a lot of times as parents, we sort of look at our kids and we try to control it based on what we think that they should be doing. But it's important for us to continue to allow them to just really enjoy life and be kids. And my kids want to get involved in something, I just have one rule for them. If you start it, then you got to finish it. So that, stick to that motto, make them finish everything that they start, and your kids will definitely figure out what they want to do in life.
That's awesome. Amen, amen. As a veteran in the league, I know you take your role as a leader very seriously. As a captain of the defense, and being a leader is also being a mentor, etc. How would you describe kind of your leadership philosophy and style?
So I think being a leader is something that you definitely learn to be. And when I came into the league, I had a lot of great leaders on our football team. We had a really veteran football team at the time. And, for me, the last 6 or so years, I've been a captain and a veteran of our football team. And, for me, it's pretty simple. I wouldn't ask or want our guys to do anything that I'm not willing to do as a leader. I think you have to be able to take charge and be able to, I guess I can't really say stand in the front line because you really know what that's like, to stand in the front of the line. But for me, it's all about being willing to go above and beyond the call of duty.
That's awesome. We often talk about the NFL being a microcosm of society, that there's different belief systems, different backgrounds, just people from different walks of life. How do you show or share your faith in that locker room? How do you exemplify Christ in front of others?
So for me, it's pretty simple. God has been truly amazing to me in my life, and I've never been afraid to share that with anybody that's willing to listen. I think my story really speaks for itself, but everybody on our team knows what I believe in because I make it known what I believe in. And I think in the society that we live in right now, it's where you have people that want to glorify putting guns in school versus having Christ in school. I think that really speaks to a lot about where we're headed right now. So it's important for us as believers to always continue to profess our faith, to let people know that, we understand that God is in control of all of this.
That's awesome. Actions over words, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, but I'm going to put another individual on the spot because I think this is a great time. Tyler, where are you at, Klutz? Tyler shared a story with me at a PAO conference where he was at with a teammate of Thomas's that wasn't a believer. And just this year, he thought Christians were, they just blowhards, do-gooders, whatever. But he watched this man in the locker room, how he conducted himself on a daily basis. And he says, now I know what it means to be a Christian. Gentlemen, that is the most powerful testimony a man can have in his life, is not do as I say, but do as I do. And are you walking the walk? Amen. I just want to applaud you on that one, gentlemen. Yeah, amen. And this, kind of continuing along this theme that, mentorship and discipleship, I see it every day through my wingman ministry. And I'm sure a lot of the business leaders here this morning see the need for mentorship for a lot of the millennials. You guys speak millennial? No, I'm just... And again, part of being a leader is being a mentor. And you alluded to a few of the guys when you first came in the league who were mentored you. Who were some of these guys?
So when I came into the league, we had Mike Minner on our team, we had Mike Rucker, we had Julius Peppers, we had Steve Smith, we had Stephen Davis, we had Jake DeLome. I mean, the list just went on and on of the veteran guys. And it was a more of a veteran league when I first came into the league. And so those were some of the guys that I really looked up to a lot. And they really took me under their wing, and they showed me, what it was like to be a pro. And, I remember one of the things that Mike Minner told me, being a first-round pick, he told me they're going to go from saying what you can do and start talking about what you can't do if you don't come in and prove yourself. And, that message has stuck with me for going on 14 years now. It's all about what you can do in this league. It's all about the right now, going out, producing, and showing up daily. And that's kind of the motto that I've been living by since I've been in the NFL. In Carolina, we talk about keep pounding. That's what I do on a daily basis. When you think about the injury history, when you think about, I can go on and on about the injuries that I've dealt with, from playing in the Super Bowl in 2015 after breaking my forearm 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. I mean,
old school.
Yeah. Last year, the third game of the year, I broke a rib, played the whole season with it. So, I mean, it really boils down to, as a player, what are you willing to put yourself through to go out and compete and fight with your brothers?
They talk about mentorship being like a two-way street. Who's your Paul? And then who's your Timothy and your Titus? Who are the young guys holding up and mentoring right now to basically replace you on the team?
So without a doubt, Luke Kuechly is a guy that I point to because he's one of the nicest guys that you'll ever meet. And when you think about what Luke has been able to do throughout his career, he's a guy that still never feel like he knows too much. He's always willing to listen. And another guy that I look to is Shaq Thompson. Those guys that I have direct contact with daily, and they're not selfish guys. They are always willing to learn, always willing to listen. And when you get guys like that, you have a chance to really have teaching moments. And it's been really good being around those guys.
That's awesome. Now, and your wife, Kelly, you have 4 kids. 2 boys, 2 girls, 16 down to 8, right? Now, being in the NFL, it's a very demanding job with all the time constraints it takes upon your, during the season, off season, and, kind of maintaining that balance between football and family is tough. I know personal experience, too, that, when you play a game, you come home the next day, you may be there physically, but mentally, you're still on the field, right? You're still going through the game. How do you manage that time or that aspect of balance between football and family?
It's a switch that you have to have. You got to know when it's time to turn it on when you're playing the game. You got to know when it's time to go home and be dad. And for me, I was able to figure it out at a very young age. And, it really started with, like I said, some of the mentors and some of the guys that I had around me, watching them in their daily walk with their families and watching how they interacted with their wives. And even before I got married, I already knew what I needed to do just based on watching some of those guys. And being a dad right now, growing up, watching my kids, watching my wife, I understand that her job is just as valuable as mine. And I think as men, once we realize that, we can understand and appreciate our wives so much more because, I feel like being at home in 2009, 10, and 11, seeing the work that she had to do to not only take care of my kids, but take care of me at the time. It definitely made me appreciate and value what she does a lot more.
So the best advice you can give a newlywed man is just to be able to learn to say, yes, ma'am.
Absolutely. Happy wife, happy life. It's definitely true.
How does your faith now impact how you view the cause of promoting life?
My faith now definitely impacts that in a major way because I understand that, God is the creator of all things. And when you think about so many people that are actually out trying to have kids that can't have kids. And I think God is very strategic in his planning and the things that he does, and he doesn't make any mistakes, and we all know that. So it's important for us to continue and always be obedient, but I think for us as men, it's time for us to really step up and really take charge. Because when you think about the dynamics of what we're dealing with right now, when you think about women that make decisions to abort kids or to end pregnancies, I think it really starts from not having a strong foundation on the other side. Most of the women that make these decisions are making these decisions based on the men not being strong enough to step up and take on responsibilities. So it's important for us as men to encourage the younger men, the younger generation that are coming up now to not back away from taking charge and taking on responsibility. If you go out and you do certain things to create life, then it's important for you to be able to step up and protect and be that father or that other half of the spectrum that needs to take place in order to raise kids. I grew up in a household that didn't have a father. My mom, she was 15 years old when she got pregnant with me. And obviously she couldn't afford to take care of me, but she made the decision that I deserved to be here because God placed me in her life. And just think about, had she been one of those parents that made that decision because my father wasn't there, So it's important for us as men to continue to educate these young men on the things that they need to do to step up and don't be afraid to be a man.
Amen. Amen, amen. Brian Fisher, co-founder and president of Human Coalition, who Council for Life supports. I don't think Brian's here, but one of his business development, is Jeff Bradford here? I thought he was going to be here. But anyway, Brian wrote a book called Abortion, the Ultimate Exploitation of Women. And he makes the case that abortion is a man's issue and that men started it and men can put an end to it. Now, you talked about what a man's role is in this. You have a leadership academy, and I'm just curious too, with the young men there, do you teach them, skill sets about respecting women? Maybe you want to talk a little bit about some of the lessons that you teach these kids.
Yeah, so with my leadership academy, we work with middle school kids, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade kids. And like we talked about last night, the reason we decided to choose that age group because kids are leaving elementary school and they're really trying to find their way in life. They're trying to make a decision on which direction that they want to go in. So it's important for us to step out in front of them and teach these kids at a very young age about the qualities of being a leader. Not being afraid to step out in the front and not becoming a follower, because you see so many kids get caught up in following other kids down the wrong path and doing the wrong thing. So one of the things we try to work with these kids on is definitely maintaining and keeping their abstinence and making sure that they are refraining from that and, not only doing it from a standpoint of, hey, this is what I say you need to do, but showing them in the Bible where God lays it out for us. You're not supposed to be doing this until you're married. So we try to follow everything up that we do with the kids with some kind of biblical approach so they know that it's not just our words, it's coming from the Lord.
Now you're making a transformational impact on that generation. How many classes of Leadership Academy, how many kids have gone through? How many years have you been doing that?
So we've been doing the Leadership Academy since 2008, since the foundation has been started, and we've had our first group of kids graduate 2 years ago, and graduate high school 2 years ago, and we were able to provide scholarships for some of those kids, and we have 2 8-week sessions, one in the fall, one in the spring, and we have them every Monday night, and they start at 6 o'clock, and I talked about it last night. I'm there for every session that we have unless we have a Monday night game. And I feel it's important for me to be there because I'm very hands-on and I love what we do with our foundation. And I want the kids to know that this is not just something that I'm doing, that I'm just putting my name behind. If I'm gonna be a part of this and my name is gonna be attached to it, I'm gonna be there and I'm gonna make sure that they know that I genuinely care about them and I want to see their lives change for the better.
Very excellent. Now, you said in your acceptance speech for the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award that that it takes a village. I mean, you personally experienced that growing up in Shellman. That's certainly a role that I think everyone here probably agrees with. So what role do you think the community plays in supporting pro-life decisions, and how can we as men, what would you recommend to us as men of Dallas, of North Texas? What role should we be doing? I
think it really starts, like you said, in the community. It starts with us being more proactive and educating the young men that are around. I think, like you talked about with the millennials right now, the kids are confused. They don't really understand the dynamics and how things work. A lot of these kids in this day and age are fatherless. And when you think about not having a father in the household, a lot of kids are not going to make the right decisions just based on that. So it's important for us to stand up and be active, go out, get involved in the Boys and Girls Clubs so that we can affect these kids at a young age so we can show them and teach them the proper way of doing things. I think that's where it really starts at. So if you have the time, and I feel like we as men, regardless of how busy we think we are, we make time for things that we want to do. And we all can agree on that, right? We make time for things that we want to do and things that are important to us. And I feel like this is something that's very important to us all. If we want to make a change that's going to be a lasting change, then we need to get involved with these kids.
Yeah, exactly, because it's mentorship. It's not an easy path. It takes time, true transformation. You got to get your hands dirty, and you got to get off the bench and into the game. Dun-dun-dun. You like that one? But let's just wind this down here. You mentioned that you haven't scratched the surface of the things you want to accomplish in your life. And I used to tease my teammates that before coming to play for the Cowboys, I had a real job. You know, I was in the Air Force, you know, flying jets. So I had a perspective of, you know, a little different perspective than my teammates as to what I was going to do afterwards. Now that you're nearing this next stage of your life, after winning the Super Bowl, hopefully getting there this next year, yes. Right?
Kansas City versus Carolina, right?
That's right. They were placing bets last night already at dinner. So what do you think, what is this, after football, what do you see yourself doing?
Now, that's a great question. I think without a doubt that I'm going to put a lot more energy and effort into my foundation. You know, that I'm pretty sure that it's going to be something that God is really calling me to do. I haven't decided what that's going to be yet. You know, I haven't tried to narrow that down and kind of put myself in a box yet. But I know that I'm going to do a lot more work in the community. I feel like there's always a need. There's always something that I'm being called to do when you think about working and helping the kids. And over the years, our foundation has been able to grow, you know, not only in Charlotte, but we do a lot of work in South Carolina and Georgia as well. And, you know, at some point we're going to continue to expand that because we understand that each and every day that there's a parent that wakes up that can't provide for their kid. And we want to be able to help them. There's a kid that wakes up and don't have the proper things that they need to go to school and be successful. So we're going to help them as well. So we know that there's a need, and we're just going to continue to try to service those needs.
Amen to that. We have a few minutes here, and I thought, as opposed to me up here asking all the questions, I thought maybe some of you, anyone out there would like to ask Thomas a question. Scott.
So my question is, why were you, in the situation that you were in, able to overcome that, where so many other people, it doesn't look like they're able to overcome that, and they let that be the ending of their story. They just couldn't get out.
That's a great question. I think for me, it was a decision that was made at a very young age that I wanted to do more. And I knew in order for me to do more, I had to dedicate myself to the things that were going to be provided in by way of being an opportunity. And sports was a huge part of that. I understood that education was the most important thing. Even if once I got to Georgia, had I never made it into the NFL, and I got drafted as a junior, I left school early. But I went back to school and graduated 5 years later because I understood the importance of education. And I know that the NFL lifestyle doesn't last forever. So you have to have something that, and I'm not going to even call it fall back on, you have to have something that you can graduate to in the next level when you're done playing the game. And, you know, it was important for me to go back and complete my degree credits, but it was definitely at a young age, I made a decision, and I stuck to that decision. A lot of kids don't have the mindset to continue to do things when they have a setback, when you don't have a college scholarship waiting on you. A lot of kids don't have that go-get-it mentality when everything is not laid out for you. They don't stay obedient, you don't stick to the process, and that's how you see a lot of them fall by the wayside.
We'll wrap this up. There's probably planted some seeds here of individuals that would be interested in your foundation. If somebody wanted to get involved, how could they do that?
So we have, and I'll tell you a little bit more about our foundation. When we started our foundation, we were paying, I told him last night, we were paying this lady a bunch of money to run our foundation. And, you know, we decided, my wife decided that she could take over and she could run it and do just as good a job as the lady was doing. And 100% of the proceeds that we brought in could go back to the kids and the families that we were working with. And, you know, that's been a huge blessing and being able to do that. But for the first 5 or 6 years of the foundation, all of the money that really went into it came from me and my wife's pocket, for the most part. And it wasn't really until we won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award that we received the money that went along with that and some other donations. And for whatever reason, when you're not tied to a big organization, we don't really receive a lot of donations. But for you guys that do feel the need or that you want to help us out and donate to our cause, and just know that, like I said, 100% of the money that comes in goes back to the kids and the family that we work with. We have a website, it's defendingdreams.org, and all of our information is there. You can donate, you can see some of the things that we're doing throughout the year, and you can know that everything that you donate to us goes back to those kids.
Thomas, I think from all of us, thank you for blessing us with your time to here. Safe travels back to Charlotte later today. And gentlemen, let's join a round of applause for Thomas.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.